6:14 a.m., a muddy rural road in eastern Ukraine, a Russian armored column, nearly 2 kilometers long, begins to roll forward, engines rumbling, turrets scanning slowly from side to side. The sky is empty, no fighter jets, no attack helicopters, no reconnaissance drones overhead. Then it happens. A sharp explosion rips through the formation. A command vehicle erupts in flames, followed seconds later by an ammunition carrier. On a shaky FPV feed, the target fills the frame. In modern warfare, when no one guards the sky, who truly becomes the hunter and who is already prey? The road where this column advances cuts through eastern Ukraine, a region shaped by wide fields, sparse tree lines, and a handful of paved supply routes that funnel movement like a choke point. Since 2022, control of these corridors has defined momentum on the ground. Mechanized forces, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, fuel, and ammunition trucks remain the backbone of territorial advances. But the battlefield they now traverse is fundamentally different from the one their doctrine was written for. Russian ground doctrine historically assumes layered protection reconnaissance assets to see first air power to strike second and armored maneuver to finish the job. In practice, that sequence has repeatedly broken down. Attrition of rotary wing assets, the growing threat from portable air defenses, and persistent Ukrainian air denial have constrained low-altitude flight. Fixed wing support, while present, often operates at standoff ranges. The result is a dangerous gap, armored columns moving with limited or delayed air cover. On paper, the vehicles in this column represent formidable strength. Modernized tanks with reactive armor, infantry carriers with autocannon, short-range air defense vehicles embedded in the formation. Yet armor is only as effective as the information feeding it. Without persistent eyes in the sky, commanders must rely on intermittent reports, delayed UAV feeds, or assumptions based on yesterday's battlefield picture. In a fight measured in seconds, yesterday is an eternity. For Ukrainian forces, this imbalance has become an opportunity. Lacking numerical parity and heavy armor, they have invested in sensors, drones, and precision fires, tools that compress the kill chain, detect, decide, strike. When an armored column moves without air cover, it does more than expose metal. It exposes intent, timing, and routes. Every kilometer traveled becomes a data point. Every radio transmission becomes a clue. This is why the empty sky matters. Not because aircraft are absent, but because their absence reshapes behavior on the ground. Crews button up slow-down cluster for perceived safety, and in doing so, they unknowingly present what modern defenders seek: most predictable movement in a transparent battle space. The stage is set not for a head-on clash of tanks, but for a quiet hunt conducted from above and beyond the horizon. Long before the first explosion, the engagement had already begun quietly. From a concealed position several kilometers away, Ukrainian operators piece together a live picture of the road network ahead. There is no single silver bullet sensor. Instead, intelligence arrives in fragments: a fleeting satellite pass showing fresh track marks, a low-flying quadcopter spotting dust plumes at dawn, a brief radio transmission caught by a passive receiver and logged for later correlation. Each fragment alone is incomplete. Together they reveal intent. The key advantage lies in persistence. Commercial satellite imagery, updated daily, sometimes more often, confirms which routes are active and which are abandoned. Small reconnaissance drones launched from tree lines and abandoned farmyards fly low and slow, trading range for stealth. They are not there to attack. Their job is to watch, mark, and disappear. When a column begins to move, its rhythm gives it away: pauses at intersections, compression near bridges, spacing that tightens when crews feel exposed. These patterns are as valuable as coordinates. Inside a dimly lit garage, a second team works against the clock. FPV drones lie open on folding tables, frames stripped to their essentials. Motors are tested by ear. Batteries are warmed to operating temperature under jackets. Warheads, simple but effective, are fitted and secured with improvised mounts. Nothing here looks industrial, yet every choice reflects battlefield logic: speed over endurance, agility over protection, cost over elegance. As confirmation comes in that the column is advancing without overhead cover, the tone in the room shifts. This is the window they wait for. Not because the enemy is careless, but because the system they rely on has limits. Without continuous eyes above the formation, the ground becomes transparent to those who know how to look. And once movement is detected, the clock starts ticking not for the attackers, but for the column that has already been seen. The first drone lifts off low and fast, skimming the road at barely 2 meters above the ground. Its electric whine is swallowed by engine noise and wind. On the FPV feed, the horizon tilts as the pilot hugs the tree line using shadows and dips in the terrain as cover. Ahead, the armored column stretches out, tanks interspersed with infantry vehicles, fuel trucks, and a command post vehicle near the center. The formation is moving but slowly, constrained by mud and caution. The opening strike is deliberate. The pilot ignores the lead tank and dives instead toward a softer target, a command vehicle with multiple antennas bristling from its roof. Impact. The feed goes white. Seconds later, smoke billows upward, thick and black. Radios across the column crackle at once. From the ground, confusion spreads faster than fire. Vehicles brake hard, spacing collapses. Crews scan the sky with naked eyes, searching for something too small and too low to see. A second FPV drone arrives from the opposite flank, threading between utility poles and dropping straight onto a fuel truck. The explosion is smaller, but more decisive. Flames race along spilled diesel, forcing nearby vehicles to halt or detour into soft ground. Inside the column, decision-making fractures. Without clear situational awareness, local commanders default to caution, stop, regroup, wait for orders. That pause is fatal. Attempts to respond come too late. A short-range air defense vehicle slews its turret upward and fires tracers, stitching empty sky. The drones are already past or already gone. Another FPV slips through the chaos, flying so low its camera briefly fills with mud as it skims the road surface. It rises just long enough to pick out an ammunition carrier wedged between 2 disabled vehicles. The pilot commits. The blast that follows is sharper, louder, echoing across the fields. Now the column is no longer a formation. It is a series of isolated targets. Some vehicles reverse blindly, others try to push forward through smoke and wreckage. A tank attempts to rotate its turret to cover the rear, but visibility is near zero. Each burning wreck becomes both obstacle and beacon, guiding the next incoming drone. Within minutes, the advance has stalled completely. The armored column that rolled forward with confidence now sits immobilized, its strength dispersed by weapons that never needed to break the sound barrier. Above it all, the sky remains empty, silent witness to a fight decided not by air power's presence but by its absence. The response begins with noise. A short-range air defense vehicle embedded in the column slews its turret's skyward radar, blinking on for brief bursts to avoid detection. Autocannon fire rips through the air, tracer rounds carving bright arcs above the road. For a moment, it looks decisive, metal answering metal, but the drones are not where the gunners expect them to be. FPV attackers arrive low below optimal radar coverage, masked by terrain and clutter. By the time a target is detected, it is already inside the engagement envelope. Crews fire on visual cues alone, often reacting to smoke or sound rather than confirmed tracks. One drone is destroyed mid-air, tumbling into a ditch. 2 more slip through during the reload cycle. Electronic countermeasures follow. Jammers power up, flooding the spectrum with interference. Video feeds degrade, controls lag. Yet the disruption is uneven. Some drones lose signal and crash harmlessly. Others switch frequencies or ride inertia for the final seconds of flight. Against systems designed for aircraft and missiles, the defense struggles to adapt to threats that cost a fraction of the interceptors meant to stop them. Calls go out for air support. Attack helicopters would be ideal, mobile, flexible, capable of hunting small aerial targets. But they are minutes away at best, constrained by their own risk calculus. Fixed-wing aircraft cannot descend safely into the engagement zone. The window is closing faster than help can arrive. What emerges is a hard lesson in scale and timing. Point defenses can protect a single asset briefly. They cannot shield a long, compressed column stretched along kilometers of exposed road. Every stop to defend creates another static target. Every delay multiplies vulnerability. As smoke drifts across the fields, the firing slows. Ammunition is conserved. Crews hunker down. The defensive response has not failed completely, but it has failed where it matters most, restoring momentum. The column remains pinned not by overwhelming firepower, but by a persistent threat that refuses to present itself on conventional terms. What unfolded on that road was not a failure of armor nor a collapse of discipline. It was a mismatch between systems built for different eras of warfare. Armored columns are designed to survive horizontal threats, shells, rockets, fragments striking from the front or sides. FPV drones exploit a different geometry entirely. They attack vertically, aiming for engine decks, hatches, and turret roofs where armor is thinnest and thermal signatures are strongest. The drones themselves are deceptively simple. Small electric motors produce minimal acoustic warning until the final seconds. Analog video links, while low in resolution, offer latency measured in milliseconds, fast enough for precision steering at close range. Their flight profiles are irregular, sudden climbs, dives, and lateral shifts that confuse automated tracking systems tuned for predictable aircraft trajectories. Against such targets, reaction time matters more than raw firepower. Cost asymmetry magnifies every mistake. An interceptor round fired at a small drone may cost more than the drone itself by an order of magnitude. A short-range air defense system can protect a point target effectively, but extending that protection along kilometers of road is impractical. Armor air defense, electronic warfare, and air support must work as an integrated whole. Remove one element, persistent air cover or overhead reconnaissance, and the balance shifts rapidly. Perhaps the most important technical lesson lies in tempo. FPV attacks compress the decision cycle. Detection, identification, engagement, and damage occur in seconds, leaving little room for hierarchical command. Units trained to fight within rigid structures struggle when confronted with threats that reward decentralization and rapid adaptation. This is not a story about drones replacing tanks. It is about systems interacting and about how small network tools can expose the seams between larger, more expensive ones. On a battlefield, where visibility is constant and movement is data protection, begins not with thicker armor but with awareness from above. The immediate result of the ambush is visible on the ground: burned out vehicles, blocked roads, and a stalled advance that will not resume that day. But the deeper impact unfolds more slowly, far from the smoke and wreckage. A single immobilized column forces rerouting, delays resupply, and consumes recovery assets that were never meant to operate under fire. Fuel and ammunition that should have reached the front line remain stranded kilometers away. Momentum so critical in mechanized warfare evaporates. For Russian planners, incidents like this impose a strategic tax. Columns must disperse, move at night, or wait for layered protection before advancing. Each adjustment reduces speed and increases logistical complexity. Armor becomes cautious, then hesitant. Operations that once relied on mass and tempo begin to fragment into smaller, slower movements that are easier to monitor and strike. For Ukraine, the lesson cuts the other way. Precision does not require air superiority in the traditional sense. By denying the enemy safe use of airspace through layered air defenses and constant drone pressure, they create windows where ground forces operate blind. In those windows, relatively small teams can achieve outsized effects. Beyond this conflict, militaries around the world are paying attention. Training scenarios now assume contested airspace at all levels, not just against jets and missiles, but against swarms of low-cost expendable systems. Doctrine shifts toward tighter integration of air defense, electronic warfare, and reconnaissance at the lowest echelons. The idea of moving large, armored formations without persistent overhead coverage is increasingly seen as a calculated risk, sometimes an unacceptable one. The consequence is clear in modern war: absence can be as decisive as presence. When the sky goes quiet, it does not mean the threat is gone. It may mean it is already overhead, waiting for the moment you commit to the road ahead. What happened to that armored column was not an anomaly, nor a one-off tactical blunder. It was a glimpse into a battlefield where power is no longer measured only by steel tonnage or firepower, but by awareness, timing, and the ability to see first. The vehicles on that road were not obsolete. The crews were not untrained. What failed was the assumption that armor can still move decisively without continuous control of the air above it. In earlier wars, air cover meant jets and helicopters, loud visible symbols of dominance. Today it can mean something far quieter, a handful of operators, inexpensive drones, and a network that never sleeps. When those elements align, they turn mass into vulnerability. Silence in the sky becomes a warning, not a comfort. The lesson reaches far beyond this conflict. Any military planning for high-intensity warfare must now assume that every movement is observed, every pause analyzed, and every weakness exploited, often by systems that cost less than a single artillery shell. Protection is no longer just about armor thickness or interceptor range. It is about integration air defense that talks to ground units, electronic warfare that does not blind its own forces, and commanders empowered to react in seconds, not minutes. In modern war, the question is no longer whether armored forces still matter. They do. The question is whether they can adapt fast enough to a battle space where the smallest tools can have the largest effects. On that road in eastern Ukraine, the answer came quickly, and it came from above. Bye for now.